Let's be honest, we live in an extroverted world. And if you're an introvert, well, quite frankly, you're just gonna have to learn to adjust. And this adjustment is a struggle for a lot of people. So that's what we're gonna be talking about in this video. My name is Sam. If you guys do enjoy these types of videos, go ahead and drop a like. If you have any advice or experience with this situation, go ahead and leave it in the comments section. Before we dive deep into this subject, I think the first thing we should do is give a definition of these two traits. So for an introvert, this is someone who enjoys spending time alone. They think before speaking and acting. They can be seen as more reserved, and they prefer working independently. In contrast, an extrovert is someone who gains energy in social situations. They make quick decisions, they can be seen as outgoing and enthusiastic, and they thrive in team-oriented work settings. So a lot of people just think that being an extrovert means that you talk a lot, and being an introvert just means that you're quiet. But as you can see, it goes a lot further than that. As mentioned, an extrovert is someone who actually gains energy from talking to people and being in social settings. This is someone who gets excited when they're about to go to a party and be surrounded by a lot of people, versus an introvert where they kind of dread going into these types of situations. For me personally, if you couldn't tell, I'm a total introvert. I'm not someone who really likes to engage in small talk. You know, I can do it, but it's not something that really excites me or anything. Like, I'm not gonna go ahead and start a conversation with you about, oh, like, the weather is great today, isn't it? For example, like when I walk into work on Monday morning, before I even get to my desk, I have like 10 people asking me like, hey, how was your weekend? Hey, how was your weekend? And usually I'm just like, it was great. And then I just keep walking and sit down before anyone else asks me. And most of the time it's because my weekend was usually pretty uneventful. Usually I'm just making videos or editing them. So there's not really much to talk about there. But I also think that I really enjoy more deeper conversations that have actual substance to them. But going back to extroverts gaining energy when they talk, introverts are the opposite. For me personally, I know when I have a day where I have meetings pretty much all day and I have to go and talk and interact with a lot of people, at the end of those types of days, I'm like drained. I need to really go home and kind of just be alone and recharge my batteries. Versus days where I'm mostly just sitting and developing and writing code, those are the times where at the end of the day, I still feel like I have a ton of energy. And I think just for me as well, I'm not really the type of person that needs to always be talking. You know, I can kind of just sit down and just like kind of just... And this actually reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time, Pulp Fiction. There's a scene in there where Uma Thurman and John Travolta are kind of on a date, and they have this pause of like 10 seconds where no one's really talking or no one has really anything to say. And Uma Thurman's character kind of interrupts and she's like, why do we feel so uncomfortable right now? Even though we haven't just talked for like 10 seconds, why do we feel like every second of every moment needs to be filled with some kind of meaningless talk? And I totally agree with this. You know, if you guys have ever been on a date, especially a first date, and there's like more than 5 seconds where no one is talking, it's just like this weird, awkward moment. And you kind of just feel like you need to just like say whatever, just to get rid of the silence. But that's just kind of the world we live in. You know, for me, my whole life, I kind of felt like I was being judged for being an introvert. I kind of felt inferior to people. But I think there was just like a moment where I just stopped being concerned with what other people thought and just, you know, I know it's kind of cliche, but I think the best thing you can do is just be yourself. For example, you know, I didn't really start YouTube for a long time because I felt like I just didn't have what it took. You know, I watch a lot of these other YouTubers and they're like very like extroverted, they have like a quirky personality, they're really funny, and I was just like, you know, that really can't be me, so why try? But it really turns out that that's not really the case at all. You know, I just feel like if I have stuff to say that's of value, people will like that. And I think that's the reason I'm able to connect well with my audience, because I'm kind of just like a normal person like you guys, but I just like talking about tech and just life-related things to tech. I think being a software engineer or being any type of developer is most fitted for being an introvert because we are just staring at a screen for most of the day, which if you think about it, actually most jobs nowadays are kind of like that. Like when I was a bank teller, I was mostly just staring at a computer most of the day. But really compared to other jobs, as developers, we get more of a pass for being more introverted and quieter. But things are sort of changing direction. You know, before you can kind of just sit in the corner and just not talk to anyone and write code for 8 hours a day and then pretty much just get the requirements, code it up, and then just throw it off to QA and then just continue that process. But as companies are moving more towards an agile approach, that's changing. With agile, you're most likely going to have a daily stand-up where you're going to be talking about what you did the previous day and where you're going to be working on that day. You're going to have to work not only more with other developers, but more with QA engineers. You're going to have to work with your Scrum Master. You're going to have to work very closely with your product owner. You need to communicate more with your manager to have more transparency in what you're doing. For me personally, I need to talk to my manager's manager as much as I talk to my manager. You're going to have to present what you've done to the business side of things. You're going to have to talk to stakeholders. At the end of every sprint, we have to give a demo and a presentation of what we've accomplished during that 2-week iteration. And on top of that, you're just going to have other meetings that you're going to have to do with like refining what you're going to be working on and just a lot of other stuff. So the title of this video is called Surviving Tech as an Introvert. So what's the best way to go about that? Well, the short answer is picking a company whose culture fits your personality best. Is the company that you're going to filled with a bunch of programmers? Are most of the people there type A personality when you're a type B personality? For me personally, I've worked at a few different tech companies, and there's been certain companies where I've worked at where my personality was way different than my teammates, and it just made working there kind of miserable, versus where I've had other companies where the people there were actually very similar to my personality, and I ended up making friends and my time there was very enjoyable. So despite me being the same person, working at 2 different tech companies really made my experience 180 degrees different. Like at my current company, we have a whole spectrum of different personalities. We have people who are very loud and very extroverted. We have people who are like basically like mice. They're super quiet, they're very introverted, but it just somehow works there because, you know, people there are very accepting of one another. People aren't very judgmental, and just having that inclusive environment makes the company culture a very enjoyable place to work at. You know, as software engineers, we have the luxury of being able to switch jobs fairly easily. You know, for example, my brother, he works as an underwriter in insurance, and the job market there kind of sucks. And basically, wherever he gets the job offer, he has to go because he doesn't know where or if or when he's going to get any other offer at another company. So he's kind of just stuck where he is. But for us, and this is something that my manager at Amazon told me, he said that, you know, with your experience here, you have a degree, you're going to be able to work at a lot of places. And the most important thing for you is to pick a culture that fits your personality best. And just really any company that I work at from now to the future, that's really going to be like one of the top 1 or 2 or 3 things that I look at before I join a particular company. Because at the end of the day, most software companies are very similar. You know, the tech stack might be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, we are writing code, especially like if you're a full stack engineer or like a web engineer. The stack might be different, but at the end of the day, we're writing code based on some type of requirement. So my recommendation for you is, you know, pick a company that's a good culture for you, that fits your personality. Don't just go for like the sexy name of like Facebook or Google. Just make sure that you have like a good vibe from them. And I know sometimes it's hard to tell until you're actually in a company. Like for example, most of the people that I work with now, I didn't even meet until I started working there. So it is tough there, and a lot of times it varies between team to team. But like I said, if you do end up in a situation that you don't like, I would recommend trying to change that as soon as possible, and instead of just like writing it out and hoping that it gets better. So yeah, that's mostly what I wanted to cover in this video. If you are in this position, you're an introvert, just know that you're not alone. You know, a lot of other people are in this, more people than you think are in your situation, myself included. Just the main takeaway from this is picking a place where your personality fits in with the culture. And just don't think that if you join a company and you don't fit in, that there's something wrong with you. Most likely it's something wrong with the company. And the best thing to do is just kind of get out of that situation as soon as possible. But yeah, I hope this video helped you guys. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't yet, and subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed already. I do a lot of these types of videos where I just kind of like talk about tech. Sometimes we get a little bit more technical. Sometimes it's more just like general stuff. But as always, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. 2019 was an awesome start to this channel, but I think 2020 is the year that we're really going to take off. So I'm super excited, and I'm just going to be pumping out these videos, hopefully a lot more. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.